Her name is Tove. She was 21 years old, full of life, and trusted the people around her, until the very people she called friends turned on her in the most brutal way imaginable. What happened inside that apartment in Vetlanda wasn't a tragic misunderstanding. It was the result of jealousy, obsession, and a cold, calculated plan to erase her completely. This is not just a story about betrayal. It's about the lies that followed, the cover-ups, the twisted justifications, and the horrifying discovery that shocked an entire nation. But before we begin, I want to thank you, my amazing viewers and subscribers, for your support through your likes, shares, and comments. Your engagements help make these stories more meaningful. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of true crime enthusiasts. Now let's begin. Tove was a medical student, a soccer player, and a substitute teacher. She had a sharp mind, a kind heart, and a future that looked promising from every angle. It was Saturday, October 15th, 2022, and the town of Vetlanda was buzzing. The autumn air carried the noise of celebration. Oktoberfest had arrived, and even in a quiet Swedish town of just 14,000 people, the energy felt different. Vetlanda wasn't the kind of place where people locked their doors in fear. Neighbors waved to each other. Nights out were simple, and most ended with a slow, peaceful walk home. But this night would not end peacefully, and Tove would not come home. At home that evening, Tove was curled up on the couch with her boyfriend Albin. They were playing Minecraft, chatting with friends over Discord, and enjoying each other's company. Nothing felt out of place. But just before midnight, a friend named Muhammad messaged the group. He and his brother Amir were heading out for a drink. The town was alive, he said. Why not join? Tove hesitated, then decided to go. She threw on her jacket, hopped on her bike, and pedaled 10 minutes across town to Nojet, a popular local bar and entertainment spot. Albin stayed behind to look after their dog. Tove arrived at 12:10 a.m. and met up with Muhammad and Amir. The bar wasn't just a bar, it was a bowling alley, a casual restaurant, and sometimes hosted live music. But the night was winding down. The venue was closing at 1 a.m., which meant they had less than an hour together. Then at 1:08 a.m., Albin's phone buzzed. It was a text from Tove. "Joanna hit me." The message made him freeze. He called her immediately. She answered and told him not to worry. She promised to explain everything when she got home. Her voice was calm, even reassuring. But Albin knew there was history there. Tove and Joanna Janssen had been friends once, close friends, back in 2020. But that friendship had fallen apart. There had been arguments, tension, rumors, and by that night, things had clearly taken another turn. At 1:49 a.m., Albin called again before going to bed. He just wanted to check on her one more time. Tove told him she was heading to Joanna's apartment. She said they needed to talk. She wanted to resolve things. Albin didn't like the idea. He could hear voices in the background. Joanna and another friend, Maya Hellman. He told her to be careful, and if anything felt wrong, she should call him immediately. But she didn't. When Albin woke up, Tove still wasn't home. He checked his phone, no texts, and no calls. It was 5:46 a.m. when he tried to reach her through Snapchat. No answer. He tried again a minute later. Still nothing. Then he remembered. Tove had said she was going to Joanna's place. So at 5:53 a.m., he called Joanna directly. She didn't answer at first, but a few minutes later she called back. They spoke for 5 minutes. Joanna claimed she had just gotten out of the shower. She said Tove had left her apartment around 3 a.m. That's all she knew. Yet Albin assumed maybe Tove had gone to her father's place after the meetup. He called her father, Peter. but got no response. At this point, Albin tried to stay calm. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe she'd stayed out longer than expected. But when he woke up again a few hours later, Tove was still gone. Still no messages and no word. Peter finally got back to him. Tove had not been home. She hadn't contacted her father at all. Now the panic set in. By mid-morning, Albin and Peter began searching. They tried calling Joanna again. At 9:53 a.m., Albin reached her. She repeated the same story. Tove had left the apartment hours ago. She didn't know where she went. Then, Peter made a chilling discovery. Tove's bicycle was found abandoned, just 100 to 200 meters from Joanna's apartment. The basket was empty. The lock was undone. But there was no sign of Tove. By 4:19 p.m., after hours of searching and no answers, the family went to the police. A missing persons report was filed. Tove Tunnies was officially declared missing. She was described as 160 centimeters tall, of normal build, with distinct red curly hair. She was last seen carrying her mobile phone and her credit card. But there was something else everyone knew that didn't make sense. Tove didn't just disappear. She was the kind of person who showed up, who checked in, who kept her promises. And now, she was gone. But there's a background story that'll really help us understand this case better. Tove was well known in Vetlanda. People recognized her red curly hair, her bright smile, and her kindness. She wasn't just a student. She was involved in the community, a familiar face in local schools, and often filled in as a substitute teacher. But in the months leading up to her disappearance, she had stepped back from everything. Tove had taken a one-year sabbatical from her medical studies. She told those close to her that she needed time to breathe, to reevaluate her path, and take care of her mental health. Some people knew she was on antidepressants, and when she vanished, a few began to wonder if she had simply walked away. But her family and friends pushed back on that idea immediately. Tove had been in good spirits. She had plans. She had people waiting for her. The idea that she had just run off didn't fit. And so, police widened the search. They began piecing together the hours leading up to Tove's disappearance. Interviews were conducted at the bar, Noet, the last known place she'd been seen alive. Witnesses confirmed there had been an altercation that night. The details were murky, but it was clear something had happened. Tove had gotten into a confrontation, and the people she was last seen with, two names came up again and again, Joanna Janssen and Maya Hellman. And since Tove's bike had been discovered just a short distance from Joanna's apartment, investigators narrowed their focus to that location. Neighbors in the building were questioned. That's when a father and son living nearby mentioned hearing a loud thud during the night. Not just a bump or shuffle, but something heavy enough to draw both of them to the hallway. Concerned, they had gone to Joanna's door and knocked. At first, there was no response. Then, a short while later, Joanna came out and spoke to the son. According to Joanna, she had no idea where Tove was. She repeated what she had already told Albin. Tove had left the apartment around 3 a.m. She claimed she had gone to get food from McDonald's with her neighbor, the same one who had come to check on her after the noise. She also admitted something else. She and Tove used to be close friends. They met back in 2020, but their relationship had turned sour. There had been arguments, a lot of drinking, and personal friction. By spring of 2022, they had stopped speaking entirely. Joanna told police that Tove had a dark side, that she struggled with self-harm, drank too much, and acted out for attention. She painted a picture of a volatile young woman who could snap without warning. Then, she described what happened at the bar. Joanna said she had been out with Maya and another friend when Tove suddenly approached her and confronted her in front of everyone. According to Joanna, Tove looked her in the eye and said, "Joanna, How does it feel to be the worst person in the world? Joanna claimed she asked Tove to leave her alone, but instead, Tove allegedly lunged at her, hitting her in the head. Joanna said that if her friends hadn't intervened, things could have gotten worse. She even claimed she spoke with security to try and defuse the situation. And yet, despite this altercation, Joanna said she wanted to make peace. She told police that she calmly invited Tove back to her apartment so they could talk things out privately. Tove agreed. And at 3 a.m., Joanna said the two of them shared a hug before parting ways. That, she said, was the last time she saw her. As for the loud thud that woke her neighbors, Joanna explained that Maya had fallen sick, vomited, and collapsed onto the bathroom floor. That was the sound the neighbors heard. She said she cleaned it all up herself, helped Maya to her feet, and then asked Tove to leave so she could focus on taking care of her friend. Later that night, she said she ran into her neighbor again, and he offered her a ride to McDonald's to grab something for Maya. That was her story. But police weren't convinced, because even though they still hadn't found Tove or her phone, her mobile data was still working. And when investigators accessed her cell tower records, a very different timeline started to emerge. From 2:47 a.m. to 3:08 a.m., Tove's phone pinged between Joanna's apartment and the McDonald's location, matching Joanna's story for now. But then, at 3:08 a.m., the phone returned to Joanna's apartment, and it stayed there until 3:45 a.m. The final ping came at 3:50 a.m. from a location much farther away. After that, there was nothing. No more movement, no more activity. If Tove had really left Joanna's apartment at 3 a.m., like Joanna claimed, why was her phone still bouncing off towers in that same area? The story was beginning to unravel. And there was more. Joanna said that when she returned from McDonald's with her neighbor, Tove's bike was gone. But that same neighbor later contradicted her. He told investigators that the bike was still there when they came back. And in Vetlanda, people talked. Many didn't believe Joanna's version of events. Her reputation was complicated. Tove's twin sister, Mai, confirmed that both she and Tove had cut Joanna off earlier that year. The reason? Joanna had been spreading false rumors, accusing Tove of cheating on Albin and trying to damage her reputation. One of Joanna's ex-boyfriends later admitted that she had once tried to set his apartment on fire, but he never reported it. Then came another disturbing detail. On January 6, 2022, someone had set fire to the front door of Tove and Mai's family home. When police checked Joanna's phone data, they discovered she had been in the area that night. Police got a warrant and searched Joanna's apartment. Immediately, they noticed the overwhelming smell of cleaning chemicals, especially in the bathroom. Inside, they found a roll of black garbage bags, an empty wine box, and 2 wine glasses left out. It struck investigators as odd. The place had been cleaned, meticulously in some parts, but certain things had been left untouched. Why? The neighbor and his son told police they didn't just hear thuds that night. They also heard something that sounded like kicking. And when they knocked on the door, no one answered at first. Eventually, Joanna stepped out, spoke briefly, and accepted a ride to McDonald's. When police interviewed Maya Hellman, she backed up Joanna's story. But something about all of it felt off. Her words were too clean, too consistent, and too rehearsed. Although the police didn't have Tove's body, and they didn't have an eyewitness, but the phone data, the inconsistencies, the smell of bleach, and the neighbor's statements all pointed in one direction. Whatever happened inside that apartment wasn't what Joanna and Maya were saying. Detectives had their doubts. Their instincts told them something was off. But instincts weren't enough. They needed hard evidence. They needed to find Tove. Search parties continued combing the area. Volunteers stepped up. Flyers went out, scent dogs, and every available resource were brought in. Days passed. Then weeks. Still no sign of her. And then came a break. Digital forensics returned. Investigators had retrieved cell data from both Joanna Janssen and Maya Hellman. Their phones had gone quiet around 3 a.m. on the night Tove disappeared. But at 4 a.m., something changed. Joanna's phone became active again. It was found out that Maya's phone didn't come back online until 5:22 a.m. It was the first digital signal that they hadn't simply gone to sleep that night. There had been movement, somewhere, and that movement would lead to a horrifying discovery. Joanna's phone had pinged in a forested area east of Vetlanda between 4:25 and 4:50 a.m. on October 16th. Officers were dispatched immediately, scent dogs were brought in, and just off a quiet rural road, they saw it, a pair of feet, and lying near the tree line was the partially burned body of a young woman. Her body was resting on her back. Nearby were torn black garbage bags and bed sheets. She had been left there, discarded, destroyed, and burned. The body was officially identified as Tove Tunnies, and she had been missing for 17 days. Although the scene was disturbing, investigators weren't starting from zero. The bed sheets and trash bags found in the forest were eerily similar to those recovered from Joanna's apartment, and soon that connection would be backed up by surveillance footage. On the morning of October 16th, just hours after Tove's body had last pinged near the forest, Joanna was caught on CCTV at a store. At 11:36 a.m., she purchased 3 bottles of lighter fluid or chemical accelerant, 3 packs of wet wipes and 1 white sheet. Then she paid. The total was 170 Swedish krona. Then she left, presumably to finish what she had started. The intention was clear: to destroy evidence, to erase what had happened in that apartment. When confronted, both Joanna and Maya stuck to their denials. They claimed to know nothing about Tove's death. They were shown the phone data and the surveillance video. They were also told about the DNA. Still, they insisted they were innocent. But investigators already had more. Pine needles, specific to the forest where Tove's body was found, had been discovered in Joanna's bedroom and on Maya's jacket. They were asked to explain that, but Joanna had an answer for everything. She now claimed that she and Maya had gone to the forest to eat cannabis cake and didn't tell police because they didn't want to get in trouble for drug use. But when Maya was questioned separately, her story didn't match. She said that never happened. And in a strange twist, Joanna even tried to shift suspicion onto her neighbor, the one who had driven her to McDonald's. She floated multiple theories, none of which held up. Then the final blow came. Tove's DNA was found in the back seat of Joanna's car and in Joanna's bathroom. There was no longer any question. Tove had been inside that apartment. She had died there, and her body had been moved. It took 2.5 months, but Joanna finally changed her story. She kinda confessed, but as expected, it was only partially true. Joanna told police that she had shown Tove her recently renovated bathroom. She said Tove dismissed it rudely, and then they argued. Then, according to Joanna, Tove attacked her first, kicked her, so Joanna pushed back. In her words, "Tove kicked me, so I sat on her. She asked, 'What the hell are you doing?' Then she put her hands around my neck, so I put mine around hers and pushed. She coughed, and then it was silent." Joanna claimed she blacked out and that she didn't understand what had just happened. She said she and Maya tried to check Tove's pulse but didn't know what they were doing. Then came the next twist. Joanna claimed Maya helped during the fight by holding Tove's arms down. She called it an accident, said they didn't mean to kill her, but the coroner's report told a different story because the medical examiner found prolonged, consistent pressure on Tove's neck, indicative of intentional strangulation. This wasn't a panicked scuffle. It was controlled, deliberate, and sustained. Also, Maya denied being involved in the fight. She said she had been asleep during the incident. She claimed she woke up to find Tove already dead, and admitted she helped move the body only because she felt threatened and didn't know what else to do. But the damage had been done. So on March 27, 2023, the trial of Joanna Jansen and Maya Hellman began. Joanna's defense team made bold claims. They argued Tove died from alcohol-induced vomiting. They insisted there was no fight, no murder. And Maya's lawyers firmly denied she ever helped hold Tove down. But again, the forensic pathologist noted that Tove's arms may have been pinned against a surface, like a floor. While not conclusive, it raised serious doubts about the story being told. Then came one of the most chilling admissions in court. Joanna admitted to burning Tove's body. When asked why, she said she didn't want Tove to feel alone in the forest, and believed Tove would have wanted to be cremated. The courtroom was stunned. But that's not all. Investigators had also uncovered disturbing search terms on Joanna's phone. How to murder someone discreetly. What is prison like? And Maya's phone had similar searches. When asked about it, Joanna claimed she was looking for song lyrics, that she was trying to find rhymes for the word discreet. She also admitted to writing a hate song about Tove and her twin sister Mai, and in a digital note on her iPhone, she left herself a reminder: clean car immediately. The deeper investigators looked, the more the motive came into focus. Joanna had built up a pattern of jealousy, rumor spreading, and manipulation. She'd isolated Tove socially, tried to damage her relationship with Albin, and kept control through fear. This wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment fight. It was the final act in a long cycle of obsession, hostility, and power. And the question now wasn't whether Joanna did it. It was whether the justice system would see it for what it truly was. But it all came to a head in the courtroom. What began with a text message and a quiet Swedish town in shock had turned into one of the most disturbing murder trials the country had seen in years. And on April 19, 2023, justice, at least in the legal sense, was delivered. Both Joanna Jansen and Maya Hellman were found guilty. Joanna was convicted of murder and gross violation of a body. Maya, while not found to have killed Tove, was also convicted of gross violation of a body for her role in disposing of the body afterward. They were both sentenced to life imprisonment. It was a historic ruling. This was the first time in Swedish legal history that such a sentence had been handed down to female offenders under the age of 21. It sent shockwaves through the nation, not just because of the brutality of the crime, but because of the age, gender, and betrayal involved. But the story didn't end there. In October 2023, just 6 months after sentencing, both women appealed their verdicts, and the outcome changed everything. Joanna's life sentence was reduced to just 16 years in prison. As Maya was acquitted of murder entirely, the court ruled that there wasn't enough evidence to prove she had participated in the killing itself. However, her conviction for gross violation of a body remained in place. But because she had already served 12 months, Maya was released immediately, from life in prison to walking free in under a year. Then came another twist, one that pushed the public's trust even further. According to reports, Joanna wasn't adjusting quietly to prison life. On New Year's Eve 2023, less than a year into her sentence, Joanna was caught planning an escape from Hinsberg Women's Prison. The plan, uncovered during an inspection, was both violent and specific. She had conspired with another inmate to attack a prison guard, using tweezers to try and blind the officer in both eyes. A move designed to prevent the guard from sounding the alarm while they made their escape. But the plot was intercepted in time. Joanna was immediately transferred to another facility with tighter restrictions. As it stands today, Joanna, now in her early 20s, is expected to be released in less than 15 years, assuming she serves the full sentence. And despite months of investigations, dozens of witness statements and digital forensics mapping every movement, the full truth of what happened that night in Joanna's apartment remains unclear. So, what do you think truly happened inside that apartment? Was Joanna's sentence fair, or should she have served life behind bars? Do you believe Maya was just a bystander, or was she more involved than the court believed? And how should society handle individuals who show no remorse, even after conviction? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them. If this case moved you, shocked you, or made you think, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next case.